I have 5 guns. I don't know if that's surprising at all, given my channel is all about preparedness and militia stuff, but I wanted to make a video talking about why, because I was thinking about that recently, and there are actually quite a few reasons why I limit myself and the scope of my arsenal. And actually, I don't only have 5 guns, but that's the unclassified number. You know how some secret projects, you go on their Wikipedia page and there's an unclassified range or performance metrics, but it can actually do a lot better. But just for the sake of discussion, I have 5 guns. And let me explain why. More and more lately, I've been realizing that the Second Amendment is not just about the guns. It's about the militia. And when I look at the landscape in the US, there are so many people that own guns, and a lot of guns, but they aren't thinking like a militia. They are thinking like atomized individuals, which is not going to help us in times of conflict. And even more than that, modern conflicts take more than guns. They take a lot of skills, a lot of technology that go way beyond that, like cyber and open source intelligence and drones, ISR, comms, of course, all these kinds of things. If all we're doing is focusing on stockpiling guns and ammo and letting all these very essential skills and equipment go by the wayside, you're not going to be as resilient as you think you are in what's coming. So that's reason number 1, is that I have other priorities. Reason number 2 is that for all the different types of firearms there are out there, I really only need 2 kinds of guns. I need a rifle chambered in 5.56 with decent capacity, and I need an everyday carry pistol that I always have on my person. And having backups and spares of those things, of course, is important too. This is an old technology. It's been around since, what, the 50s or 60s? But it's still the state of the art. There's a reason why we're still using these, and it's still America's gun. It's because we've pretty much honed in on the most efficient lethal round that you can fit into a small package, and it's perfect for home defense. Don't listen to Joe Biden. Don't go out on your front porch with a double-barrel shotgun and blast twice in the air. This is the best weapon for home defense, or a pistol. Honestly, if I heard a bump in the night, I'm probably reaching for my pistol first, but because it's a lot easier to grab. The next reason, which I've already hinted on, is lately I've been more and more prioritizing everyday carry, EDC weapons. In this 5th generation warfare context that we are in right now, not just entering on the horizon, you are far more likely to need the weapon that you have on you at all times than you are your fighting rifle, your primary weapon. You definitely need this for obvious reasons, but warfare happens when we are living our daily lives nowadays. And if you don't believe me, go check out my video on 5th generation warfare. I explain exactly the times that we're in and the ways we need to start thinking about it. But yeah, I've got my M&P 9 on my appendix. It's a full frame 9mm pistol with 17 round magazines. Then I've got a total of 2 or 3 magazines on me at all times. So 51 rounds of 9mm hollow points ready to go in any situation I may find myself in. Plus, I always have an everyday carry IFAK on my ankle for in case I get wounded or someone around me gets wounded, I can treat the massive bleeding before help arrives. Now, here's the part of the video where I might lose some of you, but hear me out here, because I'm gonna bring my faith into this a little bit. And so not everyone's going to agree with me, but here's my perspective. And if you have a different one, let me know yours in the comments, respectfully, of course. So you might be surprised to know that Jesus, for all his talk on teachings on nonviolence and turning the other cheek and all that, at one point he told his disciples to arm themselves with swords. And this was during the Last Supper. He was about to be betrayed, and he was sending them out, preparing them for the ministry in his absence. And he tells them to arm themselves, among other things. So the last time he sent them out by themselves, he told them to go without anything, just you and the gospel. But now he's telling them to prepare themselves. So he says, "When I sent you out with no money bag or knapsack or sandals, did you lack anything?" They said, "Nothing." He said to them, "But now let the one who has a money bag take it, and likewise a knapsack. And let the one who has no sword sell his cloak and buy one. For I tell you that this scripture must be fulfilled in me. And he was numbered with the transgressors. For what is written about me has its fulfillment." And they said, "Look, Lord, here are 2 swords." And he said to them, "It is enough." So I think it's interesting that Jesus pro 2A? I don't know. No, now hear me out here. I don't think that he wants us to go out there all like armed to the teeth. He wants us to have 2 swords. It's enough. It's enough. Those words ring in my head every time I'm looking at that shiny new gun. I'm like, maybe I could add that to my collection. And personally, I just hear this voice in the back of my head, like, it is enough. And I know that's not a popular sentiment on YouTube. Like, no one's selling contentment. You know, you get a lot more clicks by showing off the next shiny new thing. But I think it's important to really assess, like, have enough, have even more than enough, because you want to have overmatch against the threats that you face, but just keep things balanced. What's this all about? And for Christians, it's all about the gospel. And we want to keep ourselves safe, our families safe, our churches safe, our, be able to defend ourselves from random attack that would hinder the gospel physically. But we're not like spreading the gospel by conquest with our sword in hand and like, crusading or whatever. You should arm yourself. But it's enough. It's enough. Now, I'll rush to say I'm not telling you not to stockpile. This is America after all. I've got my own small little stockpile. I'm sure it pales in comparison to a lot of y'all out there, but I've got 2,000 rounds unclassified for rifle, 1,000 rounds or so for pistol. And when you have extra change, sure, buy some ammo, buy that new gun. But don't put unnecessary pressure on yourself to have the biggest stockpile ever. That brings me back to point number 1, is that it's not all about the guns. You should be preparing in other ways. Don't get too zeroed in on just the guns and ammo, which is a very important primary part of being prepared, but it's a component. Don't get too fixated on it. And lastly, I don't place my ultimate trust in my weaponry or my stockpile. This brings me back to another verse from Psalms. I believe it's Psalm 20. "Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God. They collapse and fall, but we rise and stand upright." So there you go. I mean, you might not believe in divine protection, but I do. That doesn't mean that God's going to save us out of every circumstance, but it means that when we're on his side, there's literally nothing that we can fear, even death itself. And we can look through scripture for all kinds of examples of people either trusting in their weaponry and it not going well for them, or trusting in God and being delivered. And sometimes there's a combination of those two, where while trusting in God, they are arming themselves. In fact, let's look at Nehemiah 4:16. So in this situation, the exiles have come back from Babylon, and they are wanting to rebuild the wall, rebuild the temple, but they're being attacked by local marauders and armed groups that don't want to see the Jerusalem rebuilt. So here's how they approach the work. When our enemies heard that it was known to us that God had frustrated their plan, we all returned to the wall, each to his work. From that day on, half of my servants worked on construction, and half held spears, shields, bows, and coats of mail. And the leaders stood behind the whole house of Judah, who were building on the wall. Those who carried burdens were loaded in such a way that each labored on the work with one hand and held his weapon in the other. And each of the builders had his sword strapped at his side while he built. It's like the biblical version of stay strapped or get clapped. So there's that. And then there's other examples of perhaps leaders trusting in their numbers and it going horribly for them because they were not trusting in God in that time. Like, I guess there's an episode where King David was trusting in the strength of his army, and he took a census when God did not command him to. And that showed the pride of the strength of his numbers, of his kingdom, and God punished him for that and gave him a choice whether he wanted to be driven before his enemies or have a plague break out or famine in the land. And he chose, well, let's fall into God's hands rather than my enemies, because God is merciful and the enemies are not. So yeah, all I'm trying to say is, where's my heart? Is my heart trusting in God, or is my heart saying, I need more ammo because I'm looking at what's coming in the news and I don't know that my X number of rounds is enough. And I personally feel if I decided I need 100,000 rounds and then World War III broke down America's door tomorrow, I'd probably just die before firing a shot. I don't know. That's just what I feel. Oh. Oh. I suppose you're wondering how I got myself into this situation. This episode of Civil Defense Engineer was brought to you by me. So in conclusion, that's why I only have 5 guns. I've got 2 rifles, chambered in 5.56. You know, one can be a spare or have 2 different optic setups, or even, you know, if my wife and I are both defending our property, we can both be armed with the most lethal caliber. That I just realized that I'm going to get a bunch of comments saying, that's not the most lethal caliber. And I've got an EDC for me, my wife, and a spare. And maybe some other stuff that I won't talk about. So I'm not trying to advocate only having a little bit. I'm just trying to advocate only having enough. And what is enough is probably going to be different for you than it is for me. That's all. That's fine. But just think about that. And that's what this channel is all about, is general preparedness, general resilience for all kinds of conflict scenarios that are coming on the horizon. And get your house ready and get your body and soul ready. You know, get fit if you need to. That's much more important for your own safety than having 100,000 rounds of ammunition. All right, and lastly, action items. First, standardize your calibers. I use 5.56 and 9mm. And then secondly, cross-train with every member of your team or every member of your family to be able to handle every weapon system that you have in your stockpile. Third, do a press check on your heart and make sure that you're ready to go into battle. What is your faith in? What are you trusting in? Are you trusting in your strength, your own numbers, your own weapon stockpile? Or are you trusting in God to be able to handle it even as you are training and preparing? He trains my hands for war so that I can bend a bow of bronze. It's God who gets us ready for what's coming. That's all I wanted to talk about. And let me know in the comments, what's your setup? How many guns do you have that you're willing to talk about that haven't been lost in a boating accident? Let me know. And until then, this is Charlie Delta Echo out.